Did you know? The Sims, one of the best-selling PC games of all time, originally started out as a personal side project of SimCity creator Will Wright and was almost never published. After spending time at home with his newborn daughter, Will Wright began to develop a concept for a game designed to simulate the behavior of a modern human family. When the idea was finally pitched to the higher-ups at Maxis, they hated it. Board director Jeff Braun said, "The board looked at The Sims and said, 'What is this? He wants to do an interactive dollhouse? The guy is out of his mind.'" It was seen as a major gamble, and people thought the game had no audience in the video game market. But after the success of SimCity 3000, Wright pushed again to get The Sims published, and finally the idea was approved. The Sims was released for PC in February of 2000 and shortly became the best-selling PC game of all time. It stayed at the top of the bestsellers list for 4.5 years up until the release of The Sims 2. The Sims 2 sold around 20 million copies, outselling the original by 4 million. It is said that the idea for certain mechanics in The Sims came to creator Will Wright after he lost his home to a fire. Wright said that the experience forced him to look at his home from a different perspective. He began to think about rebuilding his house from scratch and about rebuying the different objects that had decorated the inside. The experience directly inspired his idea for a game in which players build spaces and simulate the lives of the people who inhabit it. In fact, the game started out solely as an architecture simulation game, and The Sims were only there to evaluate your creations. It was later decided that the Sim characters themselves were more interesting than the developers had anticipated, and their role in the game was expanded upon. Many of the wants and needs of the characters within the game were developed after analyzing behavioral studies of real-world humans. The Sims even use a fictional language called Simlish, which is based on real-world languages. During development, Will Wright felt the characters needed voices to express emotion and connect with the player, but it was thought that real languages would sound too repetitive and would be too costly to translate. So, the development team started working on a fake written language by combining the alphabet and visual structure of over 8 different world languages. The spoken version of Simlish is just gibberish, which was improvised during recording. In fact, the developers specifically hired actors that were good at making up gibberish sounds during auditions. Not long after the release of The Sims 2, US anti-video game activist Jack Thompson alleged that the game exposed explicit and adult-related content to children. Thompson claimed that the game featured detailed nudity behind the censored blur that shows up on Sims when they use a shower or toilet. Electronic Arts executive Jeff Brown adamantly stood by the game's rating and outright rejected the claim. He said that it was impossible to remove the blur, and even if the player did remove it, the anatomy of a Sim was that of a doll rather than a naked human. Though it is true that the Sims appear to have no sexually explicit anatomy, it isn't true that it's impossible to remove the blur. The original release of The Sims 2 featured a simple command line cheat code that would disable the censorship blur. It's likely that Jeff Brown was unfamiliar with the cheat code. However, the expansion pack The Sims 2 University, which was released shortly after the uproar, came with a patch that disabled the cheat code. It was later revealed by EA that the removal of this code was in fact related to the blur bar controversy. Weather was also planned to be a feature in the original Sims 2 release. An early trailer shows a female Sim in a hot tub who gets struck by lightning during a rainstorm. However, rain cannot be found in The Sims 2. Weather effects weren't added to the series until 5 years after the trailer, with the release of The Sims 2 Seasons. According to some dedicated The Sims fan sites, almost all of the game's development data was lost in an office server room fire. The fire resulted in most of the game having to be remade again from scratch. This is also said to be the reason why many graphical elements in The Sims 2 beta looked better than they did in the final release. The developers were pressed for time and had to remake a lot of the content in a hurry. An early trailer for The Sims 2 also features 3 vehicles lined up side by side, one of which is a bright yellow sports car. Vehicles were only made drivable by playable Sims for the first time with the release of The Sims 2 Nightlife. Even though the cars shown in the trailer were not drivable, every car made an appearance in the game as carpools that were driven by non-playable characters. That is, except for the yellow sports car. It wasn't until The Sims 2 Nightlife came out that the yellow sports car was seen again, available for players to purchase. This may be due to what many have speculated, that drivable cars were supposed to appear in the original release of The Sims 2, but were removed. Though the drivable cars being cut is just speculation, it could also link in with the server fire. Throughout the series, The Sims has also had some fairly interesting secrets and Easter eggs. When traveling through time in The Sims 3 Ambitions expansion pack, there's a reference to Mass Effect where your sim will accidentally appear in the middle of a crowd cheering about how some kind of shepherd just saved the galaxy from some huge ancient machine god threat. There's also a reference to Red Faction Guerrilla, where your sim stands up for miners' rights on Mars, but is then attacked and almost arrested by the Earth Police. There's also a Dragon Age Origins reference when traveling to the past. While traveling through tunnels, your sim can be saved by a warden who leads the sim out safely. The warden is the name for the player-controlled protagonist in Dragon Age Origins. That's all for today, but don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you also check out didyouknowgaming.com, where we post gaming trivia every single day. And if you liked this video, check out our other videos as well. Also, you can check out my channel. I do reviews of PC games, among other things, and you can click right there to check out the list of my top 5 minigames.